All right, we're approaching the end of May here. It's getting close to summer, which means that it is watermelon growing season coming up soon. I've got my seeds started here, as you can see. I'll talk about those in a second. I wanted to mention real quick that the past 2 summers that I've grown watermelons, I did not have good success. That was sort of intentional because it was part of an experiment. I posted those videos on my channel here. You can go find them if you want to. This summer I'm going to be putting effort into actually growing the melons. There's no real experiment here except for I'm going to try something a different way, which is supposed to be helpful anyways. So the seeds I have started here, half of these, I got little toothpicks here to divide. This side here, these are a red melon. They came from a larger, really good melon. I don't think it's an heirloom. That's like an oblong shape, I know that. And then over here on the right side, these are yellow melons, and this is an heirloom type. The germination rates are pretty similar in these, except these over here were from 2017. And these here on the right were from 2021, I believe, or something like, yeah, 2021. I was surprised I got this much germination out of these older seeds here, and these were kept in a vacuum sealed jar in the refrigerator. I made a short video talking about that, so if you want to find that, you'll probably find that maybe in the link description and below the video here. So these are going to be transferred outside, so I'm going to take you out there and show you what I'm doing there. Just for reference, I used a heat mat here, and I just had this lid on top of this for a couple of days, so while this stayed warm, there was a little bit of moisture in there, and they sprouted in about 4 or 5 days. So I always use a heat mat. It tends to work pretty well and helps germination. All right, here's all my cinder blocks, and they're going to go here in my raised garden bed. This is all strawberries. I'll be talking about more of that in another video, or I might have already done that, depending on when it gets posted. So all these cinder blocks are going to go in the center of the garden. I'm out of breath because it was heavy pulling that cart. They're going to go right here in the middle. There's a little bit of a mound here, about right here, where I've grown the melons before. But you can see how tall these are. These leaves here are probably close to a foot tall, some of them. So the cinder blocks are going to go right here in the center. It's going to be a little square. I'm going to fill it in with dirt. This is going to be a raised bed on top of a raised bed, or in this case, it's more like a mound just lined with the cinder blocks with Promex. I'll be showing all that in a second here, but here on the back side of the mound, there's actually a gravel trough that goes all the way to the back side of the garden out there. It's wrapped up in a landscape fabric, and then over top of that is just all the soil. So it's under the ground. There's a French drain basically, and that goes all the way up against to this mound. So when there's just all the soil on top of it, the underside of it, none of this is going to become overly saturated. There would be a place for the water to actually go out the back side there, and it just kind of goes that way out in the yard. So we're going to get to putting this together, and I'll show you what I'm doing. All right, the cinder blocks are all laid out in the square there. Those are just some I had that came at the house. I didn't spend any money on those, which is nice. Here's what I always like to use, the Promix. This is a big 4 cubic foot bag. And then I'm going to mix what's left of my Vermis-Terra earthworm castings in there as well. So that should be a good ratio right there. I didn't really measure this out, but it looks close enough to me anyways. And then I'm also going to mix in this Osmocote stuff. I've used this in the past, mix it in with soils too. This is, I believe, 6-month time release, so it's pretty hard to use too much of it. Although if it's a potted container, I don't think I would be using all of it, but I'm probably going to use most of it in that mix. I'm going to spread some of it down on the ground underneath it before I put the soil down, and the rest is going to get mixed in with the soil. And then whatever I have left in here, whatever I decide is more than enough, I'll probably just throw around the rest of the bed just for the strawberries. As you can see here, I'm just leaving these strawberry plants that are right here in the center. I just pretty much just put the bricks down right on top of the plants. I'm not pulling them out. And I'm leaving them here in the center. I'm not pulling the plants out or even cutting them down. That's just going to be recycled back into the ground. It'll be a nitrogen source for the plants too. And I don't want to pull them out because I don't want to ruin the structure of the soil underneath that the roots and everything created. I don't want to destroy the ecosystem either with the bacteria and funguses that are in the soil as well. It's all part of an ecosystem. I'm going to leave it alone. I'm just going to lay these plants down and put the soil on top. There's no need to till this up, and with organic gardening especially, you don't really want to. You have good soil underneath there. I'm just adding soil on top of it to make a mound. Okay, got the soil all mixed up, put it inside the little planter area here, and I ended up using probably 85% of that Osmocote fertilizer stuff mixed in the soil, and the rest I spread around the rest of the garden. So here I just kind of, when I poured the soil in, I did it kind of in increments and then kind of used a shovel to work it down to get the air pockets out so it would settle, so it wasn't like a big fluffy lump. And then just kind of patted everything down in layers. And then on the top here, you can see it's not really a mound right there. See, it's not like a dome. I don't want it to be a dome shape. I don't need water to shed off of this. I want it to actually collect and absorb down into it. Because over the next week or two, depending on when I plant the seedlings out here, I want the rain and everything to kind of saturate this and to kind of let this settle down. And if I do it beforehand, like this is all really, really dry right now, I'd have to water it like crazy to really plant anything in it. So I'm gonna let nature take care of it. All right, so we're a few days before Memorial Day, and there is no danger of frost in the forecast whatsoever. So I'm gonna go ahead and plant these now. These have only sprouted probably a little less than a week ago, and I figured it'd be better to plant them now because the longer they're in that container, the more issue they're gonna have from transplant stress. So I already made my little depression here from the container. I'm just gonna pop them in there. The left-hand side here, if I haven't already mentioned, that's the red melon from 5 years ago, seeds from red melon from 5 years ago, stored in a vacuum jar in my refrigerator. And the ones on the right-hand side are an orange melon, an heirloom variety. So I'm gonna be weaning out these. I had a really good germination rate, so the left-hand side I had 8 out of 12, and the right-hand side had 9 out of 12. So germination rate was pretty good. I'm definitely not gonna be growing all of these. I'm probably gonna choose maybe at most 4 in the end. So whichever ones are growing the best, the other ones are gonna be taken out. This mound here, they're all gonna be in one spot, so there'll be way too many seeds growing in one little area. But it's best to plant now, so I'm gonna do that, and I will come back and update as needed. All right, it's been about 2 weeks here, maybe a little less. It's time to start pruning these out since there's too many of these plants in one spot. I'm gonna end up with probably maybe 4 or 5 at the most in one little area here. As of right now, I'm gonna be pulling out the ones that aren't growing as well and only keeping the good ones. Only a couple of them anyways, and then as these grow more, then I'll pull out even more of them and leave the ones that are doing even better. So, and you can see, actually you can see here, I got some yellow nutsedge growing here. You know, this soil was from a bag. This wasn't even from my yard or dirt or anything. This was from a bag. And I still got this yellow nutsedge that keeps coming up. That's why I got all these strawberry plants as a cover crop. It really suppresses the nutsedge that grows in here, which is just horrible. No matter how many times you pull this out, how many times you try to kill it, it keeps coming back. So I'm gonna go ahead and prune these out and we'll come back and update it later. All right, we're middle of June and I've just selected the last 4 plants that will be remaining to grow in here permanently and remove the other ones. They were all growing pretty well, but just can't have that many growing in one single spot. So I have 4 now, 2 of one type and 2 of the other type, right and left. So I'm gonna leave these grow and then we'll come back when we start to get the melons. All right, so I came back from vacation and I had not set up anything to water my watermelons. This is my water spigot that's in my garden. There's an underground feed that goes up to my house. No pressure is stored in this. There's a valve in the house that's electronically controlled that will come on to my desired time. So I right now I have it set to come on every day at 7:30 in the morning, I believe, and it waters it for 4 minutes. It doesn't need to be any more than that. There's plenty of water. It's just spot watering. It's not like I'm watering the entire garden. It's just where the roots are. I'll show you that here in a second. It's over here. So in the center of the garden, I got the hose that comes up here. This is what I've done in the past. And you can see here, I got this hose here with an attachment. I had one of those expanding hoses. I had a couple of them actually, and they all broke. But I saved the hose itself, and I took the silicone tubing from the inside of it, and I kept it. And I just took a piece here, and there's a sealed end on this, and there's little holes poked in through this. So this just coils around the root area of the watermelon plants here, and then it comes on, and it doesn't come out at full pressure. It just comes out in more of a trickle. But 4 minutes of watering this is plenty for the day. And it's best to actually water it in the morning. You don't want to water anything at night because that's how you can get mold and stuff like that, and funguses that can grow. So you water it in the morning so that nothing stays, soaking wet for a long period of time, just as soil is moist enough. And it looks like it's mostly recovered. there was a much larger gap here on the side of the soil between these bricks. And I mean, that was when I came home. We had a very dry week apparently since I was gone. It was plenty moist when I left though, and I could see that there was a lot of heat stress in these leaves. Their edges were starting to curl, and they're still kind of that way, but they've mostly recovered now. So I can tell that they were needing some water pretty bad. But yeah, so the gap here was like twice as large, so this whole mound here is expanded. Now, normally I don't water my garden. Normally I don't water the watermelon plants at all, because this portion here wasn't always here. This is just something I'm trying for this year. This is basically kind of like acting like a large planter, and it, the water can drain out of it very easily and quickly, versus just having it on the ground itself. Even though this is a very large raised bed, I rarely ever have to water anything in here. But this time I do, so that's why I got this set up. So I'm gonna probably update this a little bit later here once the melons start growing. But I just wanted to show what I'm doing here. Like I said before, I don't normally water the garden, but in this case I have to in this case because this dries out so quickly. So actually it's not really a bad thing. I could probably do with water anyways if I'm really trying to grow melons. My secret sauce that I'm not using this year though is normally the grass clippings, which I put on top of the soil. I haven't done that in the past 2 or 3 years, or 2 or 3 seasons now, just because I don't cut my grass and bag the grass anymore. But that really has been kind of the secret sauce because of the slow release nitrogen and lots of nutrients that come out of those clippings that would go into the soil, and the watermelon plants love it. And it also holds a lot of moisture, brings worms to the surface. So many good things about using grass clippings. But this year I'm not using them. So in a way, this is kind of an experiment too, but I'm actually putting a little more effort into actually growing these melons this year versus the past 2 years, which were continuing experiments from the previous year. So, all right, we're about 2 weeks into July here, and you can see that the watermelon plants are definitely spreading quite a bit. And just like I said they would, they're kind of growing out into the areas where all the strawberry plants are, and the leaves are kind of just growing above them. It's looking pretty thick, it's looking pretty healthy. I've actually reduced the watering time down to, I believe, 2 minutes. So every single morning it comes on before the sun rises, or at least before the sun hits the garden. It just runs for 2 minutes on a trickle right in the center there, and that's it. I had it at 4 minutes originally because it was so dried out from me being on vacation and not paying attention to it. That's all it really needs. It doesn't need to soak the soil at all. Oversaturating isn't good, and if you water too much you could leach the nutrients out of the soil, and you don't want to do that. So I'll come back and update this once I start to see some melons grow. Alright, it is the beginning of August now, and you can see here I got a classic nitrogen deficiency just barely starting here. You can see the leaves closer to the crown of the plants, turning a little bit yellow, so I'm going to add some fertilizer in there. And I never really had much of that issue when I was using grass clippings as a top dressing. This is kind of to be expected. There's a nice melon growing right there. It's not that big. It's just showing where it is. But that's the only one as far as I can tell. I haven't looked too hard around down in the other parts here. There wasn't a lot of male flowers growing. I've been looking for them and trying to pollinate them, but I haven't been seeing a lot. We still got a lot of season left anyways, so there might be more chances for more melons to grow. But right now, I mean, I'd be happy with just one, so it's not that big of a deal. All right, it is now the middle of August, and it's time for another update here. I have been giving these watermelon plants a little bit of plant food for a short time, and it seemed to help with these leaves that were all on the stems that were closer towards the crown of the plants. But I stopped giving it plant food because I figured at this point in the season it's not really necessary, since it's kind of becoming the end of the life cycle for these plants anyways. You can see the leaves over here, the watermelon vines are perfectly healthy, but this doesn't really matter because there's really not a lot of male flowers growing this season anyways. So there's only going to be those 3 melons, just the one there, the one over there that's slightly bigger, and the one underneath there that's the round one, which is from the different plant. I'm not sure which one that is. I think it's the red one. I think these might be the yellow ones, the oblong shape. But I'll show all those later on in the video once I'm going to be picking them. All right, it is the end of August, and there are the 3 melons here that I pointed out before, and here's the size. Here's my hand. So you can kind of get an idea of how big that one is. It's fairly large. It's got this little defect there. And then over here, we got this one here, which is a pretty good sized melon. That's probably about this, a size you get from the store. That one there is the one we're gonna pick. There's also this other one here. So there's the size of it there. That's also just as big as the other one is up here. And then there's actually some other smaller ones growing, and there's one right there. Let's see if I can kind of show you. It's right there. And these are the late bloomers. They'll probably not grow a whole lot larger. There's that one, and there's also one over in this area here about the same size. Those are the oblong shaped ones, which I think are the yellow melons. But those are probably not getting any larger than that. But if we have a decent growing season through September, or at least half of September, those should actually ripen up and probably will be edible. But as of right now, we're gonna go ahead and pick this one right here, the round one, which I believe is the red one. There's no other red ones that I saw. There might be some buried in here possibly, but the one over here and then the one in the middle over here, the bottoms on those are still kind of white, even though the spoon leaf and the tendril have dried up on both of those, and this one as well. I'm gonna give those a little bit more time since the vines are still alive. You can see the leaves here are still plenty green. But this one here, you got the yellow ring on the top. I don't know what that's about, but underneath it, you can see, if I can get it up here, you can kind of see that it's got somewhat of a yellow underside. And that's usually a good indication that it's ripe enough between all of those things, between the tendril, the spoon leaf, and that. So that one should be pretty tasty. So we're gonna pick that and see which one it is, and I'm pretty sure it's the red one. All right, Jesse's gonna do the honors of cutting this open and having her taste it, since she's the most pickiest watermelon eater. So she's gonna have to approve of it. So go ahead and show the world here this spectacular melon. You're gonna hurt yourself cutting it that way. Don't stab it. Why'd you do that?
Stab it.
Just cut it straight down. The knife is long enough. It's not like that knife is like 13 inches long.
Not the best watermelon cutter.
You're making it a lot harder on yourself here. Oh, it is the yellow melon. So the oblong ones are the red ones. See, now that one...
Look at that. There's a space in the middle.
Yeah, that means it's been on the vine too long, is basically what that means.
Well, we have to taste it anyway. Just cut a little piece off here.
You cut the piece off and...
It's kind of warm.
Show the world that it's a good melon.
It's kind of warm. It's sweet though.
It's good?
It's good.
Okay. So the Jesse says that is good.
It's good.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and end the video here. We're gonna come back and we'll pick the other ones at some point. All right, so we're about a week later, decided to pick one of the oblong shaped melons. One of the two anyways. They're both gonna be pretty much the same, so we're not gonna video the other one, just this one. This should be the red one, unless this was hybridized from a previous year. So we're gonna go ahead and cut this in half and then give it a taste and see if Jesse has an approval of it. Go ahead and do the honors.
I cut my hand off. Looks pretty good.
It's definitely a much more oblong shape than usual, but
Yeah.
it looks good inside. The vine looks just right. I think it's been on the vine just long enough. Tell the world that Jesse approves of this watermelon.
Feels crisp. It's good.
That Jesse approves. So that's going to be it for this year's growth. This is going to be the end of this video here. Only 3 good sized melons out of it, but that's okay. That's more than enough. We don't have, there's just not enough melon. There's too much melon to go around already as it is. We're gonna have to eat this one pretty quick, and there's a lot to eat here, so that's it. Thanks for watching.